Greetings all, Bruno Luce here for GLB Productions. Got another headphone review here for you, this time between the old school and the new kid on the block. Well, relatively speaking. What we have here today is we have a pair of Sony MDR7506 versus the previously reviewed Beyerdynamic DT250s. You can see the packaging here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out the features of these two headphones, how they compare, and most importantly, we're going to talk about how they sound. First of all, a little bit of history. The MDR7506 is a relatively old design, first produced by Sony in 1991, believe it or not. However, they got a lot of things correct because with only some minor changes, this design is still in production today. What is really significant about this is that it is still considered by many to be the industry standard for live sound headphones. Now, I am personally a live sound engineer. I do some recording, but my main experience is in live sound. As a result, I've been interested in these headphones for a long time. The Beyerdynamics, on the other hand, are a relatively recent design, but as we will see, they take a lot of their design cues from the Sonys. The main difference between the two probably is the price. In Singapore at least, the Beyers are double the price of the Sonys. So we're going to ask the question, are they worth the extra money? Do they sound that much better? Do they wear that much better? So follow along in this review. Before we examine the headphones themselves, I thought it would be fun to look at the packaging. You can often tell quite a lot about a company by the way they package their products. You can see here the Beyers, they have this sort of white cardboard, quite business-like, almost industrial packaging with the picture of the headphones on the front saying they're professional. The Sonys, on the other hand, they have this sort of sateen, luxurious cushion on the inside with a transparent front to the box. And then they have the gold logo with the word professional at the top. With Beyer, they also say professional headphone on the front. I think you can see that. And it just gives you some idea of the two companies' approach to their products. Beyer, of course, is a very old company, been around since 1924, still family owned. They still do much of their manufacturing in Germany. These headphones are made in Germany and they're actually assembled by hand, which is something that no doubt contributes to the price. The Sonys are made in Thailand and they are made in much greater quantities, which probably accounts for the price that, as I said earlier, is half that of the Beyers. All right, let's move on to the headphones themselves. So here we have the two headphones side by side. Of course, on the left side of your screen, you have the Sony MDR7506 studio monitor headphones. And on the right, you have the Beyerdynamic DT250 headphones. First, let's go through the specifications real quickly. In terms of construction, they are both closed back dynamic headphones. By dynamic, they require no external power to function, apart from, of course, being plugged into a headphone amplifier. They are a closed back design, which means that the back of the ear cup is completely enclosed and there are no holes or vents there. Unlike the 770 previously reviewed, the DT250s are not ported, so they are completely sealed. This is what makes them ideal for live sound. External sounds can't get into the headphones, and as a result, you get really good isolation from outside noises. This is very valuable when you're in the middle of a noisy gig and you're trying to listen to a particular channel that you want to audition or perhaps that has a problem in one way or another. They are circumaural, which means that the cup actually fits around your ear, as opposed to supraaural, which means that the cup sits on your ear. So your ear will actually fit inside that cup. You can see with the Beyers, they have a similar circumoral design. Now, one of the things that you're going to pick up on is that there are certain similarities in the design which is sort of Beyer's way of paying homage to these headphones. These were the first. There have been a lot of copies of them, and the Beyers are in many ways, they take a lot of design cues from the Sony. Both of these headphones use neodymium magnets. They both have a similar driver size. The Sonys have a 40mm driver. Beyer does not actually state the driver size that they use on their website, but I suspect that it is similar, either a 40 or perhaps a 42mm driver. Frequency response of the headphones, the Sonys have a response of 10 Hz to 20 kHz, and the Beyers have a response of 10 Hz to 30 kHz. So on paper, the Beyers have a slightly better top-end response. Impedance, the Sonys are available in a 63 ohm configuration. The Beyers are available in either an 80 ohm, which is what this one is, you can see there 80 ohms, or a 250 ohm configuration. The 80 ohm configuration plays louder and is better for use with portable music devices like iPods. In terms of weight, the Sonys weigh 230 grams and the Beyers weigh 240 grams. So there's only 10 grams difference between them, but as I'll mention later on, the Beyers do feel quite a bit heavier. The weight, by the way, does not include the cable. Cable length on both of these headphones, you can see here both of them have this coiled cable, and the cable is round in cross-section on both of them and is terminated with a gold-plated plug. This plug unscrews to reveal your mini jack adapter on the inside. The cords are both 3 meters long, and as you can see in the case of the Sonys, the cord is hardwired, whereas in the case of the Beyers, it is actually detachable. You put a small screwdriver in there, you back that out, and the whole thing unplugs. Now, some people really like that because it means that if you damage the cord, you can actually replace it yourself. You just send off to Beyer for a replacement, take this one off, put the new one on. It also means that you can carry spares, and Beyer do actually have a straight cable that you can replace this coiled one with. So if you don't like the coil cable, you can get a straight one as a replacement. On the Sonys, of course, that is not available, but having that connector there, as you can see, that connector hangs down quite a ways, and as a result, it can interfere with certain ways of wearing the headphone. That's not an issue on the Sonys. The ear pads. Now, the Sony ear pads are vinyl. I think they're vinyl or some kind of PVC. The Beyerdynamic head pads are this really nice Vela material. Now, this, in my opinion, is one of the major significant differences between the headphones. The Beyer pads are much more comfortable than the Sonys. You can see that the Beyer pads are actually thicker, and they really caress and cradle your ears. Just some dimensions on the actual ear pads. The Sony ear pads have an internal dimension of 60 by 40 millimeters. In other words, this internal space is 60 millimeters by 40. On the Beyers, it is 55 by 30. So the Sonys actually have a bigger inside hole. The Beyers have a smaller one, but I really don't find that to be an issue when it comes to comfort. The external dimensions on the Sonys are 100 by 75 millimeters, and on the Beyer, they are 106 by 80 millimeters. So the external dimensions are almost identical, but because the Beyers have a thicker pad, the internal dimension is smaller on the Bayers. In terms of comfort, the Bayers, the ear pads themselves are much more comfortable. In Singapore, we have very hot, humid weather, and I find that after as little as 15 minutes, my ears will start to sweat. With the Bayers, your ears still sweat, but I find that this Vela really helps soak up the sweat rather. The headband. The headband on the Sonys is metal, right? You can see there it is a metal headband. The headband on the Bayers appears to be plastic. I really can't tell. I've tried peeling this pad back and looking, and it looks like it is a plastic headband. However, I've never damaged these. Now, having said that, I do know people who have broken their 250s, but where they tend to break is right here at the yoke. The yoke on the Sonys, meaning this sort of Y-shaped section which attaches to the ear cups, is plastic, right? So the Sonys have a metal headband but a plastic yoke. The Bayers appear to be completely plastic throughout. You can see there the shape of the ear cups is extremely similar on these two headphones, right? Which leads me to believe even more that the Bayers actually took their design cues from the Sony. The headband pad, all right, the bit that goes over the top of your head. Now, the Sonys, as you can see, have a wider pad. It also says studio monitor there. Some people may or may not like that. The Bayers have a slightly narrower pad. In terms of comfort, the levels of padding are about the same. I personally find the Bayers to be more comfortable than the Sonys. The Sonys do have a wider pad, which means that they may look more comfortable, but frankly I find the Bayers to be more comfortable in that department. The ear cups. One of the big differences that you will notice between these two headphones is that on the Sonys, the ear cups are angled. Now, if I hold the yoke straight up and down, you will notice that the cups actually have an angle to them. All right? In other words, the headphones are not symmetrical. If I hold up the Bayers, you'll see that the cups are actually straight up and down. This is quite significant because it means that on the Sonys, as you can see there is a left and a right side. Now, some people, they like the cord to come down on the left shoulder. Other people prefer the cord come down on the right shoulder. This is particularly significant if you play guitar or violin. But on the Sonys, you have to wear them as the designers suggest. On the Bayers, you can wear them either way. So you can have the cord coming off the right, or you can have it coming off the left. This probably makes quite a bit of difference to some people. Just be aware of that. The fact that the Bayers are symmetrical, whereas the Sonys are not. In terms of click stop adjustments, you can see there the Sonys have a total of 6 click stops, and they are labeled on the outside. The Bayers, the clicking is actually on the inside, and they are not labeled. It's a bit hard to see there, right? You can see there are a total of 6 click stops, and they are not labeled. Having said that, the click stop retention is much more positive on the Bayers. Once you set these to a certain headband size, they're not going to change. The Sonys, on the other hand, I find the click stop to be a little bit vague, and sometimes I'll set them in, you can see there it's quite easy to change. All right, so if you are the sort who likes to set and forget, the Bayers will be better. Now, what about folding? The Bayers obviously do not fold. The Sonys fold. All right, now the way that you do this is, some people, what they will do is zoom out so I can show you a little bit better. Now with the Sony, some people will hold them here, all right, by the cups, and they'll try and fold them. Now you'll find that if you do that, the yolk bangs into your fingers. So the recommended way is to actually hold the cups at the top and the bottom and then fold them in like that, right? Now, as you can see, the Sonys are really compact when they're folded. This is one of the main advantages that the Sonys have. In order to unfold, same thing, hold pads at top and bottom, and then you may have to worry them out a little bit, okay? They will not come unfolded by accident. The fact that the Sonys fold can be a little bit of a disadvantage because sometimes they will fold without your permission. I have found that sometimes if I pick up the headphones by one side, right, that will happen. And then, you know, you're kind of screwing around here trying to unfold them and so on. Sometimes that will also happen if you're holding them and you tilt the headphones, right? There, all right? If you tilt the headphones to one side, one cup can fold up unexpectedly, and then they can get into this wonderfully crossed up fashion where you have to sort of sort them out and show them who's boss. The other thing is that because of this articulation, you can actually take the outside cup on the Sony and flip it around, and then you can actually use this to do single-sided monitoring. A lot of DJs like this. On the Beyer, you can see that the cup actually is fixed there. It will not flip around, and as a result, you can't really use them for single-sided monitoring. I know people who will put the headphone like that, and then you can kind of use that, but the other side sort of gets in the way, right? The designers of the Sonys were obviously thinking when they made this construction. Some people will actually fold the other one in, and then you've got a really, really compact sort of that kind of looks weird, doesn't it? But it does work quite well for single-sided monitoring. In terms of accessories, the Beyers don't come with any sort of case or bag. The Sonys, they come with this kind of cute retro-looking vinyl pouch, and I think it's really sort of very considerate of Sony to include this, especially given that the headphones are quite affordable. Just show you how they go in. So take the headphones, fold them up, top and bottom. What I usually do is I will put the cord into the bag first, and then I'll follow that up with the headphones, right? And as you can see, Sony got this right. That's the complete folded headphones, and you can see how much space you're gonna save in your briefcase or toolkit. This is one of the reasons why so many live sound guys love the Sonys, because they fold really, really compact. And from what I know from my own personal experience, they're quite a rugged design. They'll last you many, many years. The pads on the Sonys do wear out and they are replaceable, similarly with the Beyers. Both of these headphones are professional design, meaning that the parts are all replaceable and you can get replacements from Beyer or Sony as you need. Before we talk about the sound, I'll just show you how they look on my head. First, the Sonys. Just bear in mind that I have a large head. I wear L-size hat and my ears are quite large. Now, if I show you the side profile, you can see how the angle of the cups really helps to keep the headband centered on your head. So, in other words, you can have the headband right here and the cups will line up. Sony obviously realized that our ears are not straight up and down. On most people, their ears are sort of canted backwards, and the design of the cup sort of mirrors that. One of the areas where I find this really helpful is where you're actually lying in bed listening to music, because when you lie down, On some other headphones, the pillow sort of bangs into the headband, but because the headband is up here, it's really quite comfortable. So ergonomically, at least from that point of view, the Sonys are probably better. I show you the Bears. Now, the Bears do have left and right marks on the ear cups, but as I mentioned, you can wear them either way. The manufacturer's suggested way is to wear them with the cord coming off the left side like this. All right. Okay, so show you the side view. As you can see there, the for a given positioning, the headband will sit slightly further back on your head, and they're not quite as comfortable when you're lying down. You can also swap them around, and as you know, some people prefer the cord coming off one side, some people prefer it coming off the other side. You can also route the cord down your back if you like. Headphones still work pretty well. Some studio musicians like the cord going down the back. I mentioned the fact that this plug does stick out quite a bit, which if you're a violinist and you have a violin here, and you're playing, this will probably get in the way. Fortunately, you can just swap them around and then you're fine, right? It's the same with guitarists. Some guitarists who are right-handed don't like the cord coming down this side because it sort of interferes with what's going on here. You can also flip it around and run it down your back if necessary. In terms of comfort, the Bears are more comfortable. Definitely more comfortable. They feel more substantially built, and as I mentioned before, the pads and the general way in which they sit on your head is a lot more comfortable. I was doing some video editing the other day, and after about an hour, these became quite uncomfortable. My ears were sweating a lot, and I found that the pads sort of started to pinch them at the edges. Bear in mind, as I said, I have really big ears. The Bears I've worn for hours at a time with no comfort issues. Having said that, I still prefer the 770s previously reviewed. Those are the ultimate comfort headphones, mainly because the pads are actually round and they seem to fit my ears better. If you don't have huge ears like me, you can probably get away with either one of these. Now, how do they sound? I got in some trouble with my last headphone review because I wasn't very specific about how I felt that they sounded. I said that they sounded very honest, but I didn't spend very long on that. So in this review, I'm going to spend some time discussing how I feel that they sound. Please bear in mind that the way a certain pair of headphones sound is extremely subjective, and you'll find that some people love a certain model of headphone and others hate exactly the same model. In certain cases, they hate that exact pair of headphones. So it's quite difficult to quantify, but I will do my best based on my experience with lots of different types of headphones, as well as doing live sound now for over 10 years. I used 2 pieces of recorded music to audition these headphones. The first is a piece by Marcus Miller from his 2005 Silver Rain album, and it's called Frankenstein. Now, the reason that I chose this is, first of all, it's instrumental, so there are no words to distract you, and you don't get hung up when it comes to the quality of the person's voice or how good a singer they are. The other thing about Frankenstein is that it has a very wide frequency range. Marcus Miller, as you know, is a bass player, and he plays slap bass. Slap bass, you've got a lot of low end and you've got a lot of high end from the popping of the strings and the way in which they impact the frets and the fingerboard. The other thing is it's got a really ripping horn solo quite near the beginning of the piece. So I find that that's a really good piece to audition headphones with. So what did I find with listening to Frankenstein? The Bears the bass, Marcus Miller's bass, sounded softer and rounder. On the Sonys, the bass sounded better. It sounded really tight. It sounded very, very well defined. The Bayers did not have that definition in the bass. In fact, Marcus Miller, about 2/3 of the way through, he plays a bass solo, and if you've seen him do the piece live, he does all kinds of things with detuning and retuning the bass in the middle of the song. But on the studio version, I much preferred the Sonys for the bass. They had a really tight, well-defined sound. The bass on the Bayers still sounded okay. It's just that it had a slightly rounder tonality, and it didn't really have the bite that the Sonys did. The horns sounded better on the Bayers. They had a really smooth, pleasant, refined quality, and the treble in particular was really very nice to listen to. With the Sonys, the horns sounded bright. At times they sounded really piercing. They had a very raw, visceral sort of quality to them that the Bayers did not have. You will notice as I talk that in general the Sonys have a bit more of a scooped response. The Bayers are very, very flat, very honest sounding. The Bayers were softer for a given volume setting on the playback system. The Sonys were louder. I found that the Bayers I had to turn up by 1 or 2 clicks in order to get the same volume as the Sonys. This is probably one reason why people like these for live sound, because they play really loud, especially when you connect them to a mixing console. The second piece that I used to audition the headphones was a recording by Rebecca Pidgeon of her 2003 retrospective album, and the track is Spanish Harlem. Now, Spanish Harlem is my go-to track when it comes to a vocal recording. It's wonderfully well recorded, and you can hear you can hear all the detail in her voice. One reviewer said that she sounds palpably real. I couldn't agree more. So, Spanish Harlem, particularly the vocal, how did these headphones do? I found that with the Bayers, the vocal, especially when it came in, was less present. On the Sonys, the vocal was more present. This is probably due to the fact that the Sonys have a bit more high-end boost than the Bayers. The fine detail, in particular the sound of her lips and her teeth, when you sing, there are noises that your lips and teeth and tongue make. Those were more evident on the Bayers. On the Sonys, those fine details, and in particular the sound of her breathing, were less evident. As you know, in Spanish Harlem, after the first verse, violin comes in. The violin sounded more pleasant to listen to on the Bayers. On the Sonys, the violin sounded a little bit harsh and a little bit tinny compared to the Bayers. The piano on the Bayers sounded really vibrant, lush, full sounding. On the Sonys, they sounded somewhat less vibrant. So, what's the conclusion? My conclusion is this: if you want awesome, honest sounding headphones, these are your headphones. If you want value for money, these are your headphones. I find and I feel that the Sonys are better value for money than the Bayers. The Sonys in Singapore are half the price of the Bayers. And do the Bayers sound twice as good? I don't think they do. Alright? The one area where the Bayers really trump the Sonys is in the fine detail that they can resolve and the way in which the sound is really, really honest. I would be very cautious about making EQ decisions when using the Sonys. However, for just general run-of-the-mill doing sound, and especially doing live sound where you're going from one gig to the next and you need portability, you've got limited space because you're carrying everything in your briefcase or in a bag. The Sonys, with the ability to fold and the included case, these are the winners. All right. Personally, I use both, and I use them for different purposes. The Beyers I use when I'm mixing, and especially when I'm doing mastering, where I need to make EQ decisions based on what I hear in the headphones. The Sonys I use for things where I'm not making EQ decisions. So for example, video editing where there's not very much EQ decisions to make, and of course doing live sound. That's my opinion. Yours may be different. This is Bruno Luce for GLB Productions. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you to my new subscribers. Thanks for the support. I'll see you around.